The Columbia River is the largest river in the Pacific Northwest, beginning in the Rocky Mountains. The river flows from British Columbia down to the state of Washington. The river meets the Pacific Ocean close to the Washington-Portland state border. To put this in perspective, the Columbia River basin is approximately the size of France or Texas. During the 1940s, the land close to the Columbia River was developed and inhabited. However, during the spring, when the snow melted, there would be numerous floods. The most notable flood happened in Vanport, Oregon in 1948, resulting in the complete loss of the city. The Columbia River Treaty was a cooperative effort between Canada and the United States to better manage water resources for shared benefits. The treaty was signed in 1964, consisted of the development and operation of 4 dams, 3 situated in British Columbia, Canada, and 1 in the United States in Washington.
The arch between Blaine, Washington and Douglas, British Columbia symbolizes is given new dynamic meaning by the heads of the countries. President Johnson and Prime Minister Pearson choose this spot for public proclamation of the Columbia River Treaty that had just been formally ratified in Ottawa. Mr. Johnson signs a presidential announcement of the treaty. It had been under study and processing for 15 years until the signatures of the Canadian Foreign Secretary and the U.S. Ambassador to Canada were affixed earlier today. According to tradition, the President gives out the pens he had used.
Though the operation and maintenance of the 3 Canadian dams are managed by the province of British Columbia, the treaty had also agreed a one-time payment of $65 million and ongoing 50% profit of the estimated downstream power benefits in the U.S. The reasons for the treaty were for gaining ability over flood control, irrigation, and building a means for hydroelectricity. The Columbia River Treaty has an indefinite end. However, the flood control agreement ends in 2024, and if either country wishes to end the treaty, a 10-year notice is required. So far, no intent of termination has been indicated by either country.
Effect of the Columbia River Treaty. The vastness of the Columbia River makes it a great source for hydroelectricity, making the river of the biggest sources of hydroelectricity. The dams successfully enabled control over the water flow, avoiding floods in the inhabited areas. The treaty between the 2 neighboring countries showcases the benefit of working together. Further, the river provides a beautiful recreational environment for inhabitants in the area. Environmental impacts. It is estimated that in the damming of the river, the land of an enormous amount of wildlife, including deer, elk, moose, and bears, had been flooded. The effect of the dams on aquatic life has had more of a serious impact. The salmon and steelhead trout that used to frequent the river face difficulty in migrating both upstream and downstream. Measures such as fish ladders had been put in place. However, the population of the salmon in the Columbia has considerably decreased, and some species had even been listed as endangered. Social impact. The salmon carries great importance in indigenous beliefs and culture. Therefore, the decrease of the salmon population in the Columbia River holds a great effect to the First Nations community. There was little to no consultation with the indigenous people in the founding of the Columbia River Treaty, causing a lot of discontent. Inhabitants and whole communities had been displaced for the building of the dams. Future of the Columbia River Treaty. New measures such as the Columbia River Treaty Review website have been made to try and include members of the Columbia River Basin community. So far, both countries have decided to continue with the treaty. With the recent election, who knows what will happen with the Columbia River Treaty?